Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Spring into Google series here at BPS's OIT and Digital Learning team. We're broadcasting live from our new home over at the Bowling Building in Dudley Square, and we couldn't be happier, especially when we're talking about spring in this dreadful winter. We're happy to be here today talking about Google Drive and lots of other things around digital literacies. Liz Holman is here with us today, and she's going to be introducing herself in a moment. She'll be taking us through our BPS Learns, our learning management site, which many of you may be familiar with from your experience picking up your new laptop for learning, your new MacBook Pro, which I hope you're all using. Today we are lucky to have a few teachers who are going to be our guest panelists, and that's what this is really about, highlighting the great work that BPS teachers are doing using our Google Apps for Education and helping students and teachers develop their digital learning skills. I'm going to turn this over to Liz Holman right now, and again, thank you for joining us.
Hi everybody, thank you Ed. I want to welcome everybody here. So far we don't have a whole lot of viewers in here, so I'm going to move really slowly through the next few things in hopes that it'll help everybody get oriented and get in before we actually dive into some of our content. We should have some teachers joining us. We don't have them on the Hangout yet, and we've never had teachers on a Hangout with us before, so this is new to us. So bear with us. If we wind up hitting a snag, we might need to pause for a few seconds while we get teachers into the Hangout. As all of you know, I'm sure, they're at the end of a very long workday and need to get set up and oriented and everything too. So while we're waiting for people to get here and before we launch into some of our content for the day, I want to make sure everybody knows how to get into BPS Learns. So I'm going to share my screen with you. And BPS Learns, you might remember it from when you got your L4L, and we have a lot of things going up in there. So here's BPS Learns homepage, and you'll log in with your BPS ID number and your hub password. And then for everybody who signed up in MLP or who RSVP'd for Google Workshops, you should see the Spring into Google option under My Courses drop-down menu. If you don't see the Spring into Google option under the My Courses drop-down menu, let me show you another way to get into the course. You can scroll down here to the bottom. You can stop here and learn about Digital Learning Day if you want to. But you can scroll down here to the bottom, and under Technology, you'll see Spring into Google. And if you are not already enrolled, you can enroll yourself. There's a little option over here on the right to enroll yourself if you're not already enrolled in the course. And then under week 1, we have all of our stuff for this week's workshops. So first is the video that's broadcasting now. You can click play. I'm not going to do that because that would be crazy because we're broadcasting, but you can join the back channel, and this is the #1 thing I want to make sure everybody does right now. I want you to be able to join the chat so that you can chat with us while we're in the webinar. This is the way that you interact with us while we're talking. Tell us if something's not working, ask a question, ask our panelists a question in a few minutes when they join us. So make sure that you are in the back channel, and if you click there to join it, you'll be taken to our little room, and at the moment I don't see anybody. So I'm going to give everybody a few seconds to get to our back channel. Go into BPS Learns, click to join the back channel. Most of you received an email as well. While we wait for some people to get into the back channel, there are also a few other resources here that you can access. So at the end of today, we'll have an exit ticket where you can tell us what you learned and what was helpful to you. You have access to our presentation slides that we'll be going through here in a minute. You have a number of resources from BPS teachers that we've gathered over the last few weeks. These came mostly from high school teachers. We are looking for more resources from elementary school teachers, but all of these came from Boston Public Schools teachers, and these are things that we hope will help you in integrating Google Drive into your practice. And then at the bottom we have some workshop challenges, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. These we will reference today, and we'll give you time to work on these today, but we're also going to use these in the workshop that we're having that's face-to-face on Thursday. Some people are joining us for both of those, some people are just joining us today, but these are challenges that you can come back to later. They have step-by-step instructions for doing each of these tasks, like creating or uploading a lesson, creating a collaborative folder, creating class folders, And so we'll go over some of these tasks, and we'll be available to help you out with those tasks later on if you want some extra help. Looks like we're getting some people into the chat, so that's fantastic. I'm so glad to see everybody over in Today's Meet. Today's Meet is kind of a cool tool. You could use it in your classroom if you wanted to. You'll get a little bit of a taste of it today. But Today's Meet is neat because it allows you to experience something like Twitter with students without necessarily needing to use Twitter and social media. So that's a cool option if you want to use it. I'm going to pause really quickly and... Oh, look, we have somebody new on the Hangout. Hi, Cathy.
Hi, how are you? I don't know if you can see me.
I'm good. I can see you, and so can anybody else who happens to be watching us. So welcome to our Google Drive broadcast.
Sorry to be late. I was at another meeting.
I have a chat from Shannon, Cathy, and I'm going to go say hi to her for a second. If you want to introduce yourself to everybody, I'm going to turn it over to you. You can just tell us who you are and what you do and what grades you teach. Is that okay? All right.
Sounds good. Okay, I'm Cathy O'Flaherty. I work at Boston Latin Academy, and I teach 7th grade English. I'm a team leader of an interdisciplinary team, and I work closely with Kellyanne. Is Kellyanne's in the Hangout?
Nope, she's not here yet.
Okay, well, she's picking her daughter up at school, so she'll be here soon. And we both teach 7th grade English. We're both head of our team leaders of our interdisciplinary team, and we collaborate very closely together.
Awesome. Thank you, Cathy.
You're welcome.
All right. We're still working on getting Shannon in, and I might need to pause for a second and let her in, but I can go ahead and get us started today on our content. So I'm going to share my screen again. So I want to start by saying that we're going to talk about Google Drive today, but we want to emphasize that Google Drive is more than just a place to store documents. Google Drive does a lot more than that. Drive allows you to share and store multimedia files, and that includes things beyond documents. So a lot of people hear Google Drive and they think of Google Docs because that's how Google Drive got started. But Google Drive also allows you to share and store multimedia files like videos, podcasts and audio files, images. You can do, a lot of people know about presentations and sheets and other types of files, but most files can be stored in Drive. So if it's a file type, and the awesome thing about Drive is that we actually have unlimited space in BPS, and so you don't have a limit on how much stuff you can put on Drive. So it's a cloud-based storage system that allows you to share and store all sorts of things, and that's an important thing to know about Drive. It also allows you to collaborate, co-create, and co-plan. So when it comes to 21st century skills and literacies that our students need, we also have lots of skills and literacies that we need to build, and part of that is collaborating. Google Drive also allows you to survey and learn about your students and parents, provide feedback for students, and coordinate peer workshops. And so there's lots of things we're going to talk about it allowing you to do, and I know that the teachers who are joining us today are going to share a lot of these things as well. But one thing I wanted to also show you is that we don't want to emphasize when we talk about these tools, when we talk about Drive, just what some of the functional skills are that it teaches students. So people think about Drive and they're like, well, I'll have students type their papers in Google Drive and it will help them gain their typing skills. And that's certainly true. It'll also help them learn how to save and organize files. But such skills are sort of down here on the functional technology skills end of the spectrum. And we want to move beyond that too. So we certainly want to help students access the web, search the web. But when it comes to what the skills students are going to need in their college and careers and the things that the Common Core asks students to be able to do later on, we want to move students up this curve towards strategic digital literacies. We want students to be able to communicate across platforms. We want them to create multiple modes and media. And what's great about Drive is because it allows you to add multiple media and create in multiple modes. It gives you a space for doing this that's also supported by BPS, and it gives us a space to help you do that and support you in doing that. So I actually created this graphic using Google's drawing app, which is kind of fun to use, and so that's one example of how you can compose in multiple media using text and pictures and creating graphics and stuff like that in Google. So I'm going to turn it over to Ed and see if I can't get Shannon in here while he goes over some basics of Google Drive, shows you a few quick tricks that you can learn, and talks to you about students' Google accounts here in BPS.
Thank you, Liz, and thank you, Cathy, for joining us. It's nice to see you, Cathy, and we've been meeting with some teachers at Boston Latin Academy, and they've been sharing their work and really trying to cultivate what I used to call 21st century skills with their students. It seems like an outdated term already, but in reality, even though it's 2015, we still have a lot of work to do with teachers and with students to help them attain these not just functional skills, as Liz says, but these facilitative skills that help teachers really integrate technology in meaningful ways that help prepare students for the world of career and work for 21st century. So I'm going to share my screen again with my writing program here. Well, let's see, I'm going to go back to the slideshow for a second. Just to mention one thing about Google accounts and students in BPS. A few years ago, BPS adopted a Google Apps for Education system, which gives us a robust set of tools that is in a much more secure environment. So all BPS teachers are now using their BPS Google accounts, but students also have accounts, and many schools have their students actively using their accounts where they can access their material online and from anywhere, any device at any time, including mobile devices. We also have many Chromebooks in the district at this point. We have a partnership with HiQ, our vendor, and Chromebooks are the real tool of choice when it comes to using Google Apps for Education. It's a Chrome-based browser. Pretty much that's what the device is, and students can log in using their email accounts and have access to all of their documents saved in their drive and backed up on multiple Google servers across the country. So we're very excited that we have tools in place in the student's hand, and the Chromebooks make a very, very useful set of tools because they're mobile, they're light, they're not expensive, and schools can afford them, and they can be shared by multiple users. If you have any other questions about Chromebooks, we provided some resources in one of our documents that I'm going to share with you in a moment. Just switching down a little bit to the next slide, just what we're going to be covering today, sort of what is Google Drive, some of the basic settings in Drive that make it a beneficial tool for teachers and students to share documents and to organize their professional as well as their teacher life in the classroom with their students. Then we're really fortunate to have some teachers on board with us too, and they're going to share some of the work they're doing with their students and with each other using Drive. Finally, there are a few things you might want to know what Drive can do with your teaching and how you can facilitate the work you do for a student assessment, for helping students attain the skills they need for their PARCC assessments, which are coming up in a couple of weeks, and just in general, their creative, critical thinking skills, their communication skills. There's so much that is available online using these web-based suite of tools known as Google Drive and Google Docs. So I'm going to just take you for a moment through some of the basics of Google Drive. And I have a document open here that we use to share with some of the people in our workshops, and it's called Writing with Google Drive, Resources for Educators. And the digital learning team has put this together and has made this a public document so that people can access it, and as you can see, it has many resources here about Chromebooks and an overview of a teacher blog and how some teachers are integrating Google Drive from specific examples in the classroom. And so today's workshop or webinar, this Google Hangout on Air, isn't really a how-to because there's so much time to play around with the tools itself and some great resources to learn the tools. But I am going to show you some things that you may not know about that are sort of on the basic level. And I'm just going to show you some of the menus that we have available in our Google Drive doc. So this is a document, and we do have unlimited storage in our Google Drive, and we can upload any type of file, including Microsoft Word documents. We can upload PDFs, PowerPoint presentations. They can all be converted to a Google Doc and be shared with multiple users. We have an unlimited drive where we can add video and audio files as well. And in fact, the digital learning team has done a lot of videos recently, and we're doing screencasts and using our YouTube channel, and we're storing them in Google Drive so we can collaborate on them and write a script and assess how good they are and what improvements we might make. But Google Drive has become an ideal cloud-based storage system for us to store these files and to access them from home or from work, and to be able to collaborate with our colleagues. So Google Drive is a great place for storing large files and all types of media. So when you're in a Google Drive document, whether it's a presentation, a spreadsheet, or a doc, there are some common things that can do there. So you can see that the first thing you see on the file is sharing. And sharing is one of the basic features that make sort of this idea of collaboration really possible with Google Docs. And just to show you the settings here for Google Drive, a document, you can copy the link and make it public, and just copy this link right here and send that link in an email to your friends. Or you can add specific names of people here that if you wanted to share a document with just an individual or a couple of people, to do that. So that's what we do when we want to share documents. Under the File menu, you can create new documents, and you see there's the suite of tools that Google Drive has to offer. And one of the tools that is not used a lot, or two of them actually, is the drawing tool, which Liz illustrated today. Can be great for those of us who are used to using graphic organizers in our classroom with students, things like Inspiration or Kidspiration that used to come on our MacBooks. Drawing can do all of those things, to make templates, to make graphics, to help students organize their thoughts, their writing, and to collaborate. Another tool that is really great use for assessment, and some of our teachers are going to be talking about that today, is the Google Form. The Google Form is basically a survey, but there's all sorts of options for adding audio and video to a Google Form, and it collects the results in a spreadsheet, which then can be used for any type of assessment. Presentations and documents you might already be familiar with. A presentation is the equivalent of a PowerPoint, a Microsoft PowerPoint, but it can be shared with other collaborators. Up to 10 or 20 people can be working on a presentation together and be editing. One of the things that is excellent for it, if you find a document that you like and you want to use it for another purpose, you can easily make a copy of a document and rename it. Right up here is the naming options for Google Drive, a document, so you can rename documents. You can also move a document to a folder, so the organization parts of Google Drive is very, very useful. I know one of our teachers today, Shannon, is going to be talking about revision history and how you can see changes over a period of time. When we used to talk about track changes in Microsoft Word, revision history allows you to see the editing and the revision process in a Google Doc. So there's lots of great options there. Without going into too much of the menu items here, I just want to draw your attention to the inserting option in a Google Doc. The inserting option, especially, I'm just going to click on something there, is available when you can add a comment. And comment is a great way to give feedback to a writer, so peers can do this with each other. We like peer editing, we like collaborative work, especially around projects and long-term assignments where students are doing multiple drafts. They can comment and students can give feedback to each other. Students can share their documents with their teachers, and Liz is going to talk about some of the ways that can be done in an efficient, conventional system that makes it easy to manage. But comments allow that opportunity where you can provide feedback anytime, anywhere, and students can respond and have conversations online to be able to improve their writing and improve their critical communication skills. So there's lots to be able to do there. As Liz discovered earlier this week, you can insert a drawing tool into your Google Doc and have graphics embedded into a typical word processing document like a Google Doc. We also have the special things like research, which we're not going to go into too deeply here, but the translation and the research document allow you to do some very specific things that will help students achieve those critical and creative thinking skills and the responsible use of sources and much more that is required for them in college. As we move across the menu items up top, you can see that tables are very, very easy to insert into a Google Doc, and you can organize and customize your tables. And tables can be used in multiple ways. We have on this document here, we have Catlin Tucker, I encourage you to look at her blog. She provides some resources, especially around integrating Google Drive to make teaching about Common Core skills very easy. And she uses tables quite a lot for comparing and contrasting and providing evidence when we talk about analysis of writing and analysis of nonfiction literature. So there's lots of opportunities there to integrate Google Drive to help students achieve these skills that are really going to be necessary for them to be successful in college career. And one of the things that I keep discovering, and I think Google just keeps getting better and better every day, are these add-ons. I'm not going to go through these, but these will take you to the Chrome store, which allows you to add specific apps onto this. And you can see just briefly some of the things that are accessible in this, in the App Store, a thesaurus, a dictionary, and a whole host of other apps. If you're working with Chromebooks, you also have access to all sorts of apps. So we have those options, which are very, very easy to add on and provide a great format for sharing, collaborating, and helping students achieve those critical thinking skills. So I'm just going to get out of this for a second and go back to our presentation here and get ready to turn it over to Liz, because we have a lot going on. But I do want to encourage you to look at the resources. That Writing with Google Docs page resource is a great one to access. And now I'm going to just look at Liz and let her lead you in introducing our next group of teachers who are going to share with you some of the work they're doing with Google Drive in their classroom and with each other.
Hi, everyone. I am going to turn it over to our teachers here in just a second, really quickly, and let them introduce themselves. We're having some issues getting Kellyanne on. I think that part of it is that we got to get Google Plus set up, and that's involved in the Hangouts, and so I'm not sure if we're going to get Kellyanne. We're going to keep trying while I turn it over to Shannon and Cathy to introduce themselves and talk about how they use Google Drive with their students. They're going to show you some of the ways they've set it up. They might explain some of the assignments that they do, how they organize Google Drive as part of their classroom practice. And then there will be some time for you to ask them some questions as well. And then if we can get Kellyanne in, that will be great. And if we don't get to see her this time, then we'll invite her in on a future one, because she has all sorts of cool things that she does with her classroom. I'm glad we got Shannon in. We almost didn't have Shannon. So welcome, Shannon.
Thank you.
You could join us. Well, I guess I'll just turn it over to you, Cathy, and let you introduce yourself, and then we'll talk to Shannon, and you guys can go back and forth. We'll stop and ask questions if we want you to follow up on something, and you can share your screen as well. I believe both of you know how to do that if you want to show everybody something. We might jump in if we get a question from teachers over in the back channel, and we might jump in and ask questions too, so be ready for that. All right, I'm turning it over to Cathy first, so go ahead, take it away, Cathy.
Okay, hi. I'm sorry that Kellyanne isn't here, because she's, I'm actually debating in a minute about calling her on my cell phone and having her go on speaker, because that might be helpful. But it's just a thought. But Kellyanne and I do a lot with Google Drive. She's the other 7th grade English teacher. She leads an interdisciplinary team, and I lead an interdisciplinary team. And so that's this year, it does not include math, but it's English, humanities, and science, and Latin. And hopefully next year it'll be math again. And we do a lot of work with our kids. In 7th grade, the kids just arrive here, and we get, I think we had like 35 feeder schools or more this year. So we get kids from all over the city. So one of the first things that we actually do in the 7th grade is we all work together and get the kids set up with their Google account, their Gmail. And that's really the first step. So once we get that set up, we can go back and forth with Drive. And, you know, we teach the kids at the very basics in the beginning of just how to go into Drive and create a document. And it ends up with us using everything from, you know, we use it for, we have kids do graphic organizers on them. Sometimes we put the graphic organizers right up online and kids can type into it. Sometimes you can just send it to one person in a group and have kids work on a computer in a group and fill in a graphic organizer. We have Socratic seminars with our students, and we'll have kids fill out a form before and after, before, almost like a KWL kind of approach, but using the forms. And then we can share the form, we can take the form results and put them into a spreadsheet on Google, and then the kids can go access questions from each other and ask questions and answer questions. We have used Google to collaborate with other teachers quite a bit we have a weekly meeting, we keep an ongoing Google Doc, and then, I'm supposed to meet with administrators about that. I just share the document with administrators, and they can check at any time what's going on with us, and, come and ask us if they have a question about that. We share documents with the other 7th grade team so that we keep what the kids get in the 7th grade at BLA is uniform regardless of which cluster they're in. I've used it for differentiated instruction. So I've had kids who every year I'll have a kid who just cannot keep a notebook. And so I've had that particular child keep the notebook online. And then I can just, as a Google Doc, and then I can just go into the document, and then we all know where it is because it's in the cloud.
Cathy, I'm going to stop you really quickly for 1 second. The forms that you just mentioned, I just want to point out to everybody, and I showed this on my screen, that you can access those forms. We got examples of those from Cathy and Kellyanne. And so we have examples of those in the BPS Learn site. So people can grab those and they can adapt them because we made copies of them. So you're not going to mess them up or their forms if you want to grab examples of those forms that they use for Socratic Seminar, and they use them for a number of other things too. But you were talking about notebooks. Keep going.
Kids can peer edit with each other. So on the Google Doc, once you get past the stage of how do they create a Google Doc, you as a teacher can go in and add comments to their writing. They can add comments to other kids' writing once you have kids sharing Google Docs with each other. And I was even talking to some teachers. I was at a national board conference this weekend, and a teacher gave me a great idea where because for national board, one of the things you have to do is demonstrate kids interacting with you in a certain way. Well, you can take a screenshot of that. That's a great thing to upload as an artifact, for example, of you working with a student or whatever. Could even work with a parent that way, I would suggest. We've had kids, we have our kids work with older kids. So this year there was a big press on for teaching grammar with our writing. So one of the things that I worked out with a 10th grade teacher is his kids in 10th grade are learning we did a similar unit on phrases and clauses and commas, which is review for his students and new/review for mine, depending where the kids came from. And so we're getting everybody on the same page in 7th grade, and then they can we'll have them share their writing with one 10th grader, and the 10th graders will give the kids feedback based on the same grammatical points, so that they're all which is really great for the 10th graders and really great for the 7th graders, and my 7th graders love that. I don't know, we've shared Google Forms and notes with guidance on kids. So when we need to talk about a kid, we don't put kids' names in there. We use initials or student numbers. And some of this is on SIS, but we'll keep a sheet on maybe one kid, for example, that we're all monitoring across the cluster, for instance. Maybe we're going to pull that kid for testing, or the kid already has been identified and we want to get some notes for bringing into a meeting, and so we'll do that. We've used Google spreadsheets for grading. We do an end of the year symposium in 7th grade that's an interdisciplinary capstone project, and while the kids are presenting, we've had all the teachers around the room with a Google form open that we put in the categories for the rubrics and so forth, and then we'll all grade at the same time, and we can have chat open, and we can also, you know, converse back and forth as we're grading. So these are just, I feel like I'm throwing a lot of things out there. I don't know.
Actually, I'm gonna ask you to show one thing while I'll ask you to pull it up while and Shannon goes ahead and introduces herself and talks about some of the, and there's a long list, right? All the things you can do with Drive. And I'll have Shannon talk about some of the things she does, and then I might have you show the rubric that you were just talking about, how you do that collaborative grading, if you have a copy of that.
Okay.
Are you able to show that?
I'm going to try and dig that up for you while you're working. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So Shannon, you can go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we'll come back to Cathy here in a minute.
All right, sounds good. So I'm Shannon Morey. I'm a physics and chemistry teacher at East Boston High School, and I teach both freshman physics and honors chemistry, which is mostly 10th through 12th graders. And for the most part, I've been using Drive heavily with my honors chemistry class and also to collaborate with other teachers. So my Drive folder, which contains all of my PowerPoints and lessons and everything for physics, is shared with the other physics teachers, and my chemistry folder is shared with all the other chemistry teachers. It makes it really easy for us to collaborate. There's another teacher teaching honors chemistry, and we get together and we plan and we work together on one Google PowerPoint that we both use for the entire week. And so it's really allowed us to collaborate well with each other and kind of create a very cohesive class. But in terms of actually using it with my students, especially in the honors chemistry class, I use it fairly heavily. They have a lab report due about every 2 weeks, and a majority of my students actually just share their lab reports with me on Google Drive. So then I can access them all there. If I want to, I can print them off and grade them, or I can just leave them comments and grade them right on Google Drive. And I've done both. Another thing is when we had a really big project, which was their science fair project, they were working together in groups, and so a lot of them would create one Google Drive or one Google Doc for their science fair lab report, and then they could both work on it together in separate spots. And then a lot of the students asked me to look it over before they turned it in so I could leave them comments. And so I was able to leave them comments, and we were able to have fairly lengthy discussions even over like a weekend about their science fair lab report just in Google Drive. And so they were able to make edits and respond to my comments, or like mark my comment as resolved after they changed theirs, and I could go and look back at their lab report and make any additional comments. And so through that, it was a really, really convenient way to work with my students on their lab reports. And then another way that I've used it is actually when we do an experiment that involves collection of a large amount of data that we would then want to share as a class. I can have all of them, I can share one Google spreadsheet with them, and they can enter their data. From there, all of the students can see all of the classroom data from a certain experiment. So that's been really helpful. I'd say those are probably the main ways. I've definitely used forums too as kind of a homework submission. That's been helpful. But I say those are the main ways that I've been using Google Drive.
Hi, Shannon. I'd like just to ask you and Cathy a question, if you don't mind, and that would be, you both mentioned how convenient it is to be able to collaborate with your colleagues and how convenient it is to be able to engage students in the process of sharing documents. What about the academic rigor and the quality of the work that you're getting back from students, or the quality of work you're creating with fellow teachers? Have you seen a change in the type of work that is being produced using Google, and how that might benefit sort of the quality of academics at your school?
So I mean, this is one of my first years teaching, so I don't have a lot of comparison, but I do think it has been really helpful in terms of the ability to leave comments, and I definitely think that because we were able to go through so many iterations of things like the science fair lab report over a weekend with students and being able to collaborate online through that definitely has increased the quality of the work, just because we can have much more iterations than if they were only able to come in and see me Wednesday after school and then it was due a week later and that was the only time they could get feedback from me. So I think that definitely helps the quality of the work. Like I said, other than that, I haven't this is what I've been using with my honors chemistry class, so I don't have a whole lot of comparison.
Well, students are spending more time doing work and revising their work, maybe spending more time than they would normally have in a classroom if they didn't have this opportunity. Thanks. That makes a lot of sense. Cathy, how about you?
So what I was saying is that I was trying to, so in a meeting, for instance, we could pull up one of our professional practice goal, has to do with writing across the curriculum this year, and so we can pull up a student's work and we can look, all of us, at the document at the same time, for instance, and that in itself provides a foundation for some of the collaboration we do as teachers in terms of planning and so forth, so that's really helpful. I think that I've had kids, even today in class, I'm having kids teach a lesson. I did a jigsaw project on teaching them all different types of phrases, and so they're going to teach each other. And just, I told them they're the teacher of that class, and so do they have a handout? Well, they're able to go on Google Drive, and we can work on it simultaneously to edit that document before they give it to me, and I was going to make copies for them for their students. So little things like that, just in terms of having kids be able to go back to work, revisit. I'm an English teacher, and that is just so important and critical when it comes to revision and writing. So that's a main one. Just having kids be able to share work with each other and work on a project and not have to worry, oh, one kid lives in Brighton and the other kid lives in South Boston. They can't really get together over the weekend to collaborate or work on something, but they can do it on a Google Doc, for example. And so that gives them more time to collaborate and keep things organized. For 7th graders, that's huge, organization. So I have to say, in general, as we get into the 21st, we just went through accreditation, and we talked a lot about 21st century learning with that. I have to say, Google Drive has really allowed us. I think the best part about Google Drive for me also is my kids who don't have, like, say, Word at home, or they don't have a computer, but they can walk up the street to the library over the weekend and work on a Google Doc that's already started, and then they can access it here in the classroom, and then they can leave here and they can continue working on it in the library during their study hall. I think that also provides a lot, opportunities for more for revisiting writing. So I think that there's so many opportunities for that. Graphic organizers to help prepare them, having kids work on that individually or together electronically. There's so many possibilities with it. I just think that once you're willing to take the risk, which is really what I think the hard part about doing all of this is just being willing to take a risk. What really helps me in terms of building rigor with it is collaborating. Like, I'm sorry Kellyanne isn't here because she's just wonderful at that. And all the, I have other teachers on my team who are just, much more tech savvy, for example, than I am. And when they, when I have a question, I can go to them. When they have a question, they can come to me. We just support each other through that process. And so that in itself helps, improve the quality of what we're getting from kids.
So, Cathy, you mentioned risk, and I see taking risk, and I see Shannon nodding her head in agreement with you. How do you define risk in relation to Google Drive or using technology and Web 2.0 tools in general? Maybe Shannon, maybe I can throw it back to you to see what your thoughts about risk are and what that means as a new teacher and how that impacts your sort of development. So, Shannon?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think for me, it means that we're moving beyond what many students are used to, and so that can be risky in itself if you're creating something that students might not be familiar with in the classroom. I definitely think that is its own form of risk, but especially for me that I found with my chemistry class, they've really embraced it. Like once we've gotten used to using Google Docs, they use it all the time, and it's really nice for me now, especially like we keep pushing to make our lab reports, more and more rigorous. And it's a really easy way for me to show them how to do certain things. And even, some of them don't know how to make tables yet in Google Docs. And so now that everyone's kind of on the same page with using this tool, it's been really, really helpful. And I think really the risk is just kind of opening yourself up to trying something new, something you're not used to and maybe the kids aren't used to. But
so you didn't know everything before you started using it, and so you're learning along with your students in some ways. Is that true? Is that what you're saying?
in some ways, yeah. I mean, Google pretty much runs my life for me, so I felt pretty confident with it. But it was definitely something that, even when I was kind of preparing to be a teacher, I didn't integrate that much into the work I was doing with students. So it was risky in terms of, this is the first time I'm trying to do it with a class of 25 students. But I've been completely happy with it.
Great, thanks. And Cathy, I know that you spent a lot of time thinking about risk and the roles that teachers have to play for being a 21st century teacher. So how has that impacted you as an experienced teacher? And
well,
how do you like
as a veteran teacher of almost 20 years, I have to say we didn't always have Google in the classroom, and for me it was like, what? Okay, I just think it's what it is it's willingness to take the leap and willingness to learn something new, and also for me to be in a classroom and be able to say, okay, I don't really remember, does anybody know how to do this? And I always have 5 kids who are like, oh yeah, this, I know how to do it. And then, I just say, okay, you are now the expert. Can you please go help, child A, B, and C? And they do, and they feel really important. I know I have, geeky little exam school students, but they love to help each other out. And I think that the risk is not knowing everything. And so that discomfort, that level of ambiguity where you're kind of like, I want to move forward, but I don't know everything about this. I think if you're willing to take the leap, which is what I kind of just did, and I have to say I also felt supported by colleagues, so I sought out that support, and I have no problem doing things like emailing people who I think can help me with something and asking questions, just because, I think that there has to be a level of or a willingness to take that leap. And if you can just get to that point, what you'll find is that, and I also think if you just say to kids, I don't really know everything we're going to do with this, but we're going to try it. And I just feel like I've learned so much from the kids as well, and from working with it. And then, the next time I approach it, I have a different level of experience with it, and now I can move forward and try something and take a new risk maybe, or I think it's just an openness, and what I have found is if you're willing to take that, which I have found for myself, is that it has made my life easier in so many ways, even though it seemed like it was going to be a really hard thing to do. Once I figured out how to use it, it's made my life so much easier. I mean, just being able to say to a kid who doesn't have word processing, go on your Google Doc and share that with me. I don't have my paper. Well, when you get home, share it with me. Okay, great, or telling a parent, when your child gets home, can you share the document, or can you, your child's documents on there, you can look at it. There's just so many possible ways of working with it, and I just think that you just have to be willing to and open to those possibilities.
And on that note, I actually wonder if the two of you can talk about what some of the initial steps are. So if we have a teacher that's just getting started with Google Drive, what are some of the things you kind of have to do first or understand first in order to get things set up so that you can use it in the classroom with your kids?
I think Gmail was a big thing for us. Getting the kids set up with their Gmail accounts, that's the biggest, and probably in terms of management, a really, I think you just have to devote a class. And, with 12-year-olds, you have to have explicit directions with that. You need to be willing to get up and walk around the room and check out what they're doing, and and have some things in place. Email me once you get I actually set up, instead of using my personal email, so we're called Cluster B at the school. It's just nomenclature. And so I just, I have a BLA Cluster B Gmail account, and I just will have the kids send me an email from your new account so I can see that you're on there, and I can have that open, and I can just check kids as they go along, and then you can put that on a spreadsheet, so then you know what everyone's Gmail account is. We do that even at the beginning of the year. Once they get their Gmail, we then send out in my cluster a survey, which is a way to get some information about our students. We ask questions, all kinds of questions that you would ask in any kind of introductory survey to your students, who's at home when you get home, what language is spoken at home, that type of thing. And, they'll fill that out with their parents. And so then we have on there, that same spreadsheet, a lot of information about the student along with their Gmail address. And that's a really handy resource, for example, when we're in a cluster meeting and we think, oh, we have to email a parent. All of that's on SIS, but when we can just pull up one spreadsheet, it does make our life a little easier, and it gives us a little more information than SIS would, because the kids and their parents answered some questions for a homework assignment, for example. So that would be the big one, I'd have to say, is the big first thing.
Yeah, I think having all the students have some sort of Gmail account is important. Some of my students still use their personal Gmail account, which it works fine in my classroom, and it's wonderful that they have the option of having like a BPS Gmail account as well. The only other thing I would say is just kind of be familiar with the variety of options there are on Google Drive, because it's not just documents, but there's spreadsheets and there's slides and there's forms. And I think it can be a little bit overwhelming at first, but just giving yourself the time to become familiar with those different tools is really important. And because a lot of them are really quite robust. They have most of the functions that you need in a word processor or a spreadsheet. And just kind of shifting your thinking from whatever you're using before, whether it was an Apple or Microsoft product, to using the Google version of it, can take a little bit of a mind shift. But it's definitely worth it because of the ability to so easily collaborate with everyone.
Yeah, and once they get on to one thing I would say with our 7th graders, and maybe, I don't know, Shannon, are you working, what grade did you say you're working with?
Mostly 10th through 12th.
Yeah, so we have the younger kids, so the one thing we do is, for example, so we don't get like Little Miss Cookie 38, these weird. I'm old school. I want to know like what their name is. So we have we have them set it up like you have to have your last name, first initial, and all of that. We go through the whole thing about getting them set up in a particular way, and then requiring them to use that same account, because part of what we feel is that as they move, since this is the first year they enter BLA, that part of what we want to make sure about is that they are able to move forward and understand that there's really a huge difference. It's kind of like when I say you don't talk to your friends the way you talk to me or other adults, and I don't talk to you the way I talk to my friends. I don't want, they should understand using email a certain way also matters. So I think that teaching them even the protocols and the etiquette is part of that, and that does matter, I think, and it sets a certain tone for the kids, for the quality of the work they're going to give us. And with the 7th graders, I think that it's helpful.
And I think a lot of teachers are going to come up with a system that's going to work for them, that's going to be somewhat organized and coming out. That's a lot of the work we've heard a lot of teachers talk about is on the front end, what you guys are talking about, setting things up, getting an organizational system in place, figuring out what's going to work for you and your students. Sometimes that's probably a little messy when you get started, but once you have it there, it actually streamlines things. I wanted to point out too, I'm sharing my screen, a few of the how-tos and video tutorials. One of Kellyanne and Cathy's colleagues at BLA, Adam Shopis, shared with us some video tutorials he's made that show things like, especially for science and math teachers, this would be relevant, how to make a graph using a Google spreadsheet. And he also has a couple of step-by-step guides for things like creating a new document, sharing documents, setting up email. So those like little step-by-step things will teach kids how to do stuff, and then from there you can take it a step further by building those responsibility guidelines and those other digital literacies that take them a little bit further into that process.
And I'll just add that I think what's really important when Adam does that is, you know, it's pretty easy to do. I just personally learned how to do a screencast, so it wasn't that hard, I have to say. And I think what's so great about it is that now you have it. You don't have to repeat yourself 7,000 times how to do something. You can just throw it up there, and the kids can go, you know, we could throw them right up now on SIS. If you have a page on SIS, you can put a little video up there, and kids can, when they're at home, they can watch how to remind themselves how to do something. So I think it's a great opportunity.
Is there anything else you all wanted to share, Cathy and Shannon, about how you're using Google Drive, or any big takeaways?
I was thinking that it really is kind of finding an organizational system that works for you, and being aware of the multitude of options there are in Google Drive, but also knowing that if you lose something that's so wonderful about Google Drive is the search function. Never forget that if you've lost it, you can probably search for it and find it. And I mean, that has saved me so many times. But really, like, finding something that works for you. I use tags in my emails, so like tag, you know, if I have a lab report that's been due, I can tag all those emails and they show up in a separate spot in my email, and so then as I grade them, I can just go bam, 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 bam down the list of my email. And it makes it super easy, and I haven't lost a lab report because they're all in my email. And then in terms of organization, like I said, finding something that works for you and whoever you're collaborating with is just really important.
I guess, you know, for me, the big takeaway, or the big thing I would like to just leave people with it and to really think about is, if you're even at all nervous, just start small. You don't have to do all of these. We just told you a whole bunch of things we do, but I think I just started with what's a Google Doc myself. So I think if you just are willing to start small and build on what you through your experience and what you learn, it really you'd be surprised how quickly you can develop.
Well, I want to thank you two. I'm going to show a few little tips and tricks in Google Drive, and you two are welcome to stick around. If you want to stick around, you're welcome to go home at the end of a long day as well. And we are so very grateful to have had you join us and to share your practice with us.
Oh, you're welcome. Good luck, everybody.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Actually, speaking of lab reports, the students have one due tomorrow, so I think there's some students waiting for me.
Yeah.
Shannon, Cathy, thank you. This has really been an eye-opener for us as well. I think Liz and I really appreciate having the practitioners as part of our learning experience as well, and sharing your experiences with other teachers. So thank you so much, and for the resources you've shared, we're going to make them available to other teachers who might be part of the series, and more, because as you know, when we put things online, they're there for a long time, and they can be accessed anywhere, anytime. So again, thank you very much for participating with us today.
Yeah,
Okay, thanks. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.
And we've said goodbye to Shannon and Cathy. It's just us, so I want to show a few quick things before we let everybody run off and do some experimenting on their own in Google Drive today. I'm going to share my screen. I also shared a link via, I think it worked. This is the first time I've used the showcase, but I shared a link via the showcase over on the right-hand corner. That's a link to our Today's Meet chat room in case anybody has any questions and lost the connection to that chat room. So I'm going to share my screen. And there are a few things, and you can access all of the links to this stuff in our presentation in BPS Learns. But there are a few things about Google Drive that some people don't necessarily know and don't know quite how to use. When we talk to teachers, sometimes they're surprised by a few of these things, and so I wanted to show you a few quick tips and tricks that you might be able to use to streamline your use of Google Drive. The first one is the little gray folder, and I don't know how important you will find this, but I find it very important. Sometimes Ed doesn't think it's as important as I do, but the little gray folder is a wonderful organizational tool. If you have your Google Drive organized into folders, and let me show you what I mean by this. Over in the left-hand navigation bar, there's this little drop-down arrow for My Drive, and it will open up all of the folders that you have. And as you can see, I'm a big fan of folders in Google Drive. I like to keep things organized. So if you are similarly organizationally minded, the little gray folder in any Google Drive document or presentation is a good thing to know about. And it's this little gray folder up here in the corner. It's next to any title, and it's next to the little star for any Drive document you might have. And if you click on the little gray folder, it opens things up and allows you to organize them. So if I want to reorganize something, it'll open up this window and it will show me all of my folders, and then I can pick which folder it goes into by choosing the little drop-down menus for subfolders and so on. What's nice about this is that I can organize a document from within the document. I don't have to organize it from within this screen or this drop-down menu. So if you have a document that you've already made but you haven't organized it yet, you can click on the little gray folder and that will help you organize it. Another thing we wanted people to know about is that you can publish a document, and if you click on this link here, it will take you to something that explains how to do that. But you can publish anything in Drive to the web, which basically makes it public, so it's like a web page. So if you have information that you want to link parents to, but you don't want it to look like a Google Doc, or you don't want it to look like something that's still in progress, you want to sort of publish it and make it final, then you can publish the document and share the link to publish the document. And it makes it look just like a web page, so it's sort of like you published a web page without publishing a web page. Another thing I wanted to show everybody is suggestion mode. This is something a lot of teachers aren't using yet because it's brand new, but for those of you who use Google Drive as a way to give students feedback, this is just another way for students to give each other feedback or for you to give them feedback. So let me quickly show you what that looks like. I'll go into the document we were using as an example earlier. And suggestion mode is in the same place where you would usually see comments. That's where your suggestions will pop up. So you see this little pen underneath the share button. If you click on the little pen, you have options. You can either be in editing mode, suggesting mode, or viewing mode. And viewing mode shows you the final document, but suggestion mode is brand new. So if you click on suggestion mode, it allows you to suggest changes. So if I were to decide to change the title of this to learn about writing in Google Drive, some things to know, what suggestion mode does is it creates it adds my suggestion in here. It X's out the thing that I X'd out, and it puts the suggestion over here, and whoever is participating can, or is collaborating on this document, can either say, yes, I want to keep this change with the little check mark, or they can say, no, I don't like this change, I reject it. So if you were to change something in a student's paper, which might not be the best idea, but if another student were to change something in another student's paper, that student has the power to say, no, I don't like this suggestion. Or if students are working collaboratively on a presentation or a document, then they can say, no, I don't like this change, we're going to keep this one. So students are able to suggest things, reject those suggestions. It's sort of like track changes in Microsoft Word, and it's a really cool new feature for teachers who use this for feedback in particular. So that's suggestion mode. This link takes you to more resources on that. We'll talk a little bit more in our workshop about folder settings, about setting up folders, and there are also some challenges for you on sharing docs with colleagues and students. That link takes you, the best way to share docs, takes you to a blog post about how to organize and share folders with students that really lays out that process very well. And then this link talks about the research tool, one of the add-ons that Ed was talking about earlier. And this link takes you to something that allows you to translate Drive documents into other languages, which is great if you have students who speak a different language at home and you want to translate anything that's going home for students. So those are just a few quick did you knows, and you're welcome to explore those extra resources on your own if you'd like to. And I want to turn everybody's attention to what's coming next and what we expect or hope that you will do with what's left of our workshop today, since we had time blocked until 5 o'clock. First of all, what's next? We have Digital Learning Day coming up. It's next week on March 13th, but on Monday, March 9th, we're going to have another panel with some digital champions from Boston Public Schools, and we would encourage you to nominate a digital champion at your school. So that sort of goes with what we're doing this month around Google. If you know of teachers who are doing a lot of really cool stuff with Google and you want to nominate a digital champion, we would love to have you do that. We have more stuff on Google coming up in these coming weeks. If you've signed up for the series, then you know that we're going to cover Google Classroom, Google Sites, and Google Blogger in the next few weeks. and that this week we have a face-to-face session at English High School on Google Drive from 4:30 to 6:30. We'll do some of the same things we did here. We might talk about what Cathy and Shannon shared with us and share a few other resources, and we'll do a little bit of face-to-face workshopping and allow you to collaborate with your colleagues creating some things in Google Drive. And what we're hoping you'll do with what's left of our time today, we'll stay on the back channel, we'll stay in today's meet in case you have questions for the next hour, and we have provided a lot of resources here in BPS Learns for you to explore. You can check out a unit example from one of our teachers. Look at the Google Forms that Kellyanne and Cathy shared with us. You can take a look at the Science Fair podcast. This comes from a science teacher at Boston Latin Academy. So we have a number of resources for you, and then we have challenges down here at the bottom. If you are taking the Google series for PDPs, then you will want to go ahead and complete one of these assignments. You can pick one. You don't have to do all of them. But we have them sort of leveled. So there are 2 challenges around collaboration and collaborating with your colleagues. One is a little bit easier than the other. Creating or uploading a lesson is a little bit more simple than creating a collaborative folder for your grade level team. But if you click on one of the challenges, it will give you some step-by-step instructions for that challenge. And then you can add a submission. And you can either give us a screenshot or a written description of what you created, and that will serve as an artifact of what it is that you created in Google Drive. And then there are also some challenges related to using Google Drive in the classroom. So if you would rather use Google Drive in the classroom with your students, hold on, let me get there. If you would rather use Google Drive in the classroom with your students, then there are some challenges around that down here at the bottom too. You can create a class folder, create a peer review group, or use Drive to organize a student project. This is probably the most advanced of these. So we welcome you to go ahead and try one of these challenges, give it a shot. Take a screenshot if you know how to do that, or just describe what it is that you did. If you have any questions, then please come over into today's meet and ask us any questions that you have. We'll stick around for a little while. I'm going to turn it over to Ed so that he can say goodbye and welcome you to other events as well too.
Thanks, Liz. Hopefully I'm sharing my screen right now, and I'm back on the slide that talks about the building students' digital literacies. And just to thank Cathy and Shannon again for sharing their experience as teachers who are using Google pretty regularly in their classroom. Some of the things, the highlights that I took away from that was Cathy really emphasized taking risks, and that even experienced teachers are learners and risk takers as well. And as teachers today, we really do have the responsibility of being learners as well as teachers, and using the resources that are available to us, whether it's technology or the people. Cathy mentioned using her students to help her solve some technology issues and learning issues of her own. And Shannon emphasized how much time students are now putting into certain work on their lab reports because they have access to things beyond the school day when they're not. She might not be directly available, but the work still is. And of course, the big emphasis today was a lot on collaboration and the sharing of work as students and teachers work together to enhance learning and to provide sort of a more rigorous academic environment for both teachers and students. And so I just want to look at this slide here that Liz talked about, and we talk about functional literacies, and those are how-tos, the how to use the technology, how to use the Chromebooks, and how to turn on the machine and do word processing. But we really do need to climb that ladder and to build on it. It's evident in Common Core and the testing that's coming up for our students to really integrate those skills in the why part of it. Why are we using these technologies? How do we communicate across multiple platforms? How do we collaborate within a global environment? So I just want to, again, thank those teachers for sharing their work, and for everybody who's participating today. We look forward to seeing people at the workshop on Thursday at English High School and more. And please feel free to share. One of the things I just want to leave you with is that, bring a teacher on board. If this was appealing to you, but you might feel a little bit overwhelmed by learning on your own, then collaborate with somebody at your school and bring them in. Have them access the BPS Learn site and take it at your own pace, because this is for your learning, and we hope that you can take advantage of it with colleagues. So thank you very much for joining us today.